with Jeff Harris of Reference Analog out of Moore, Oklahoma. So do you think that the turntable is equally important to your cartridge, or do you think the cartridge is more important?
Oh man, your cartridge also has a lifespan that either you're gonna have to rebuild it at some point or replace it at some point. And so I feel like the cartridge is one of those areas that, you know, people can listen to for a few years and then change or try to move up the line, you know, or just change sounds a little bit in general. Whereas your turntable, you're probably gonna keep a little bit longer because it's heavier, it's harder to ship, you know, everything else. So to get the best out of your cartridge, you basically have to present it with the best, you know, stable anti-vibration system that you can. And so on a high-end cartridge, on a low-end table, you actually might introduce noise that higher-end cartridge is gonna pick up that a cheaper cartridge wouldn't have picked up. And so that higher-end cartridge is going to show every flaw in your inexpensive turntable.
Great.
So, yeah.
So do you think that the turntable is equally important to your cartridge, or do you think the cartridge is more important?
Oh man, so I think that starting with a great turntable and then working from there, because let's face it, in this hobby, it's a hobby we all enjoy, switching gear and hearing different things, you know, and we want to enjoy the things we have, but we also want to play with other sounds. So your cartridge also has a lifespan that either you're gonna have to rebuild it at some point or replace it at some point. And so I feel like the cartridge is one of those areas that, you know, people can listen to for a few years and then change or try to move up the line, you know, or just change sounds a little bit in general. Whereas your turntable, you're probably gonna keep a little bit longer because it's heavier, it's harder to ship, you know, everything else. So I generally would invest in your turntable and then try to invest, you know, as much as you can into the sound of your cartridge that you know, into the sound that you're looking for. But if you think about the concept that any vibrations that the turntable lets through and speed, accuracy, you know, speed is your pitch. And so if you don't have a perfect speed, then your pitch is going to be changing, and you know, everything kind of comes into effect, and you know, you lose your rock solid imaging, you lose, you know, there's so many aspects that can be, you know, thrown off by your turntable not performing well. So to get the best out of your cartridge, you basically have to present it with the best, you know, stable anti-vibration system that you can. So with a great turntable with great speed, accuracy, and, you know, low distortion tone arm, and, you know, everything else, then your cartridge can present the best that it can. Whereas if you get a $10,000 cartridge and you put it on a, you know, $1,000 table, or, you know, $500 table, or whatever, you know, you want to come up with, that cartridge is never going to show you everything that it's capable of, because the turntable, and in fact, it's probably going to sound worse than it normally would, because the turntable is letting through vibrations, the turntable is not, you know, perfect speed. So it's got all these factors. The tone arm on a less expensive table is generally going to have a little bit more friction in the movements, you know, and stuff like that, just a little bit lower quality parts. You know, bearings might be, I don't know, whatever, I don't know, in a higher end one, it might be sapphire, you know, or whatever. So extremely low friction, you know, parts. And so on a high-end cartridge, on a low-end table, you actually might introduce noise that higher-end cartridge is going to pick up that a cheaper cartridge wouldn't have picked up. And so that higher-end cartridge is going to show every flaw in your inexpensive turntable.
Great.
So yeah, and so it's kind of a balance that you want, you know, with a high-end turntable that's going to let the cartridge do as much as it can do, and it's going to be able to let a higher-end cartridge pick up all the nuances in the music and not be picking up stuff from the turntable. And that's kind of the goal of the turntable, is to act as a great base for your music. So there's no vibration, the speed is perfect, you know, there's no distortion or you know, chatter in your bearing systems, you know, everything is smooth and, you know, perfect. And so it's kind of a mix between them all. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, it does. It does.
But yeah.
You know, I've seen some really expensive turntables out there. I've seen, I think, a clear audio for like $100,000. Do you think turntables that are, you know, $100,000 or that type of price range are worth it? Do you think you can really hear a difference?
I think it kind of depends on, you know, what the rest of your system's like, you know, because just like the examples that we use between the cartridge and the turntable, you know, that same example happens with a, you know, high-end system, you know. So your high-end system, if you've got a weak source, it might, you know, you might be hearing all the problems with that weak source rather than, you know, the greatness of your material. So I think it kind of comes down to what the rest of your system is like when it comes to those really, really high-end turntables. And you know, the higher up the line you go, the better the tables are. I fully believe that the manufacturers are putting out better products at higher price points. You know, they just everything, the amount of isolation that they use, the mask that they use, you know, like I was saying, the quality of parts that they use, everything changes as you go up the line.
Yeah.
And so, you know, with VPIs, you can, you know, and you know, New Jersey and stuff, they've got a line of all their tables set up with the same cartridge, you know, at their VPI house, which is kind of a hosting, you know, type house that they do little events at every so often and whatnot. But you know, I've sat down with Matt Weisfeld and literally with the same cartridge gone down the line of the turntables, and each step that you take, the noise floor gets lower, everything gets a little bit more accurate, you know, there's a little bit more depth, there's a little bit more body, you know, and so as you go up the line, you can clearly hear that it's a little bit better table each step. And the higher end your system is, the more those nuances stand out, you know. So anyway, so yeah, I think there's validity in the super high-end turntables. There is definitely, you know, a factor of return that, you know, as you go up, it might level off a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's still progressing and being on the leading edge, or the bleeding edge, whatever you know you want to call it, I guess. But being on that very edge of capability and science materials and, you know, etc. You know, you've got to realize that comes with a price, and people are out there doing research and, you know, engineering, trying to excel that edge just a little bit farther, or propel that edge a little bit farther. And so, you know, it might be only 1% better for the $100,000 model versus the $50,000 model, but it's 1% better. And, you know, if a guy is trying to build out a system that is a world, like, leading class, you know, system, he's probably got $1 million invested in that system and a dedicated room and everything else. So, you know, I would think that it kind of comes down to, you know, the customer's desires and expectations, and if they're wanting to be on that very edge, and, you know. Yeah,
so. I suppose if you have the money, then why not? Right.
Yeah. It's kind of like Ferraris and you know, Corvettes. You know, I will probably never drive anything better than a Corvette, but there's some super cool Ferraris out there. You know, so you know, it comes with every hobby. You know, there's the extremes that are pushing the boundaries of everything, and you know, to get to that, you've got to pay for the engineering and the research and development for it. So part of the reason why I love the Avenger is because I can put multiple tone arms on it, and so I can listen to, you know, different tone arms and be able to compare them quickly, because it takes time, you know, to set up a cartridge accurately. Because what's the point if you're just throwing a cartridge on there? It was never set up perfect to begin with, you know, and so you're not going to get the full capability of that cartridge. So it's hard to form an opinion based on a cartridge you just throw on there real quick, because it's not set up perfect. So having multiple tone arms, I can, you know, set them up perfect and spend my time doing that, and then I can just A/B and listen to them. And then, you know, the easily swappable, you know, arm wands with the VPIs allow you to lift off, have your other cartridge already set up on another tone arm, and plop back on.
Yeah, that looks really easy.
And so you can have multiple tone arms pretty easily. So, anyway, it's fun deal about VPI with it. But
I take it VPI is your favorite turntable company?
I do a lot of work with VPIs. I also carry Oracle, but they're very different turntables. This is a mass-driven table. An Oracle table is a suspension table, so they actually use springs and dampening fluids and stuff to kind of the shock and spring, system. But that's how they get rid of vibration. So it's not with mass; they use springs and stuff. So on a 2-story house or on a crawl space type house, that every step that you take in it, you feel the bounce and you can hear the bounce. Those suspension tables do a really great job of taking care of the bounce from footfall. The mass tables do a great job at basically taking care of the minute, vibrations from like your equipment and the earth and everything vibrates. So,
right.
But yeah, so there's basically 2 schools of thought. There's the suspension type systems, and then there's mass type systems. And as you go up the line with the VPIs, the more massive they get, and that's for a reason, because any vibrations have to get through all that mass. So the motor pods get heavier and heavier as you go up, and so the vibrations from the motor internally have to get through all that mass before they make it to the table, which then makes it to the turntable. And then the platter being as heavy as it is, it's non-resonant because it's so heavy. There's a lot of material, and it is, any vibrations that are trying to get through to your record surface get lost in the mass. It kind of helps take care of all that. So anyway, that's kind of the two things. But yeah, I do a lot of work with VPI, and so I really enjoy their product, and it's kind of like I just said, that's kind of what I use at the house. So
you mentioned that you fly up to New Jersey to go to workshops. What happens there?
Yeah, so VPI generally hosts a workshop for their dealers, once a year or so, kind of whenever Matt and them be able to have the time to be able to, host an event. It's a lot of effort for them to be able to host all of this. So basically they go through a setup demonstration. So they've got a bunch of turntables. So they've got, we'll say 25 turntables or whatever for each dealer to sit down with. And then they go over the intricacies of how to set up a cartridge. They go through why they use different materials, why they use different size platters, how to upgrade different things, how to, drill, their arm board and stuff like that. That's, not stuff that you're gonna, find just kind of on the internet, well, you could find on the internet, you can find anything on the internet, but it's not the normal setup stuff. So they try to prepare their dealers to be able to handle, any situations. So, and then, there's a lot of dealers there, so you've got more experienced guys that can kind of help, show, the other dealers what kind of stuff they've ran into before. And, so it's a good event for knowledge, sharing knowledge. And then we're all, every dealer loves this hobby. You don't become a hi-fi, dealer because you want to, live in a 100,000 square foot house and drive Ferraris. So that's not right. Not the goal. That's not what you're going to accomplish. I don't know if that's your goal or not, but it's probably not going to be what you accomplish. Every hi-fi dealer gets into this because they love music and they love the hobby. So it kind of turns into just a fun listening event by the last day of training, and everybody goes to the VPI house I was telling you about, and there's pictures online I'm sure of their house. But they've got a bunch of different systems set up in every room, and everybody kind of just roams around and meets and greets and listens to the different gear, listens to the different tables, and VPI has a lot of manufacturers that they kind of partner with to do rooms in their house, and so for the dealers we all get to kind of have a weekend of playing and learning some stuff, and it's pretty fun. So
I really like that their turntables are made here in America. That's also just that's amazing.
Yeah, and I generally part of what I really like about VPI other than their customer service and made in America and all that kind of stuff is that you generally get a higher grade product for your money because it is made in the US. If we were living in Germany, it might be a different story. But there's no importer. Everything that I buy comes directly from New Jersey, from VPI, and So there's not another middleman importing the product and then distributing it to the dealer. And so you're generally going to get a, in a $4,250 table like this one, to buy a different brand, you're going to be looking at probably $6,000 to get to the performance that the VPIs put out. They're phenomenal tables, and yeah, so I really enjoy them.
And you have a VPI Prime, and you're going to demonstrate what with that?
We were going to set it up for you guys and show you kind of how to set up a cartridge, and go through. VPIs are super easy to set up, so we'll just briefly touch on how it comes out of the box and what you have to do when you get it out of the box, and that'll take like 2 minutes. And then we're going to go over how to set up a cartridge, which is a little bit more in depth. So
okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and move on to the demonstration portion of the evening, and we will show how to set up the VPI turntable. Jeff is going to show you all the ins and outs of that and what you need to do if you have just unboxed your turntable.